Good evening, and once again, welcome to the show. We have got an exciting show today. I mean, we are going to span the gamut. You know, sometimes they say, the Marty Heiser Show, what is that? And it's an ever-evolving target as to what exactly it is. There'll be a dose of politics. Don't worry. The newly minted state rep from this area, Dan Carter, is going to be joining us later in the show for a roundtable discussion. He went like a lamb to the slaughter down to up to Hartford as a new, freshly minted legislature, going up there saying, geez, guys, you guys have run the state into the ground. We're up to our eyebrows in red ink. What are we going to do about that? It'll be very interesting to see how he was received by the big bulls that run Hartford up there. So we're going to have that a little bit later. Also, just a couple highlights. I don't know if you saw this. Al, did you see this on TV? Obamacare has been repealed. I don't know if you saw that. The Congress repealed it.
Congress repealed it? Just the House of Representatives.
Well, House of Representatives.
That doesn't kind of matter, does it?
Yeah, but they repealed it, so, you know. Whew.
It's a start.
Pretty good thing. Pretty good.
What exactly does that mean?
I don't know. Al, before we fire the roundtable discussion, Al has assured me that, among other things, Joseph Lieberman, who is no longer going to be the lovely, fair-thinking, bipartisan senator from the lovely Nutmeg State, will be hopefully replaced by a nice Republican. I don't know, does Linda McMahon have any money left? Could she just roll that campaign forward?
She's got plenty of money.
Got plenty of money left. So maybe it's going to be Linda McMahon. You don't know. It could be Rob Simmons. He's been on this show many times. But I think we have an interview with Congressman Chris Murphy, who may want to throw his hat in the ring. When you throw a United States Senate seat out there in front of politicians, it's like Pavlov's dog. They're all salivating and ready to go. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. Also, right here, I don't know if we can get a close-up of this at all. We're on a little bit of a light stab here today. But basically it says, Heiser takes GOP caucus. Heiser takes GOP caucus. And for those of you that live in Ridgefield and have an interest in this kind of stuff, it's kind of an interesting situation. There's a seat on the Board of Selectmen that's coming up that's open, and there's a bit of a brouhaha going on about who's going to represent that. And now we're going to have a nice big special election in April. And so if you live in Ridgefield, and I would consider looking at my record and maybe coming out and supporting me in that. But for the Republican caucus, I prevailed, and that was last Wednesday night. If you'd like to have some cheap entertainment, come out to a local political caucus. It's pretty entertaining. But before I go any further, I don't know, do we have that yet? Or let me tell you folks at home, oh, here we go. Yeah, Heiser takes GOP caucus. It's a wonderful thing. When, you know, your name's on the front of the paper, I don't know. It's a little, it's a little self-serving. But there it is. But before we get to all that, I have a very good friend of mine, Nick Peterson, who, among other things, I play hockey with, and he is the heir apparent, the prince, the crown prince of a chiropractic empire in Ridgefield, who's headed up by Dr. Peterson, who's joining us this evening. Thank you very much for coming in. Nick, thanks for coming up. I am thrilled to have you on because I've always been interested in chiropractic, and I want to kind of get a good definition of it, what it is, what it isn't, and how it can benefit people, the vast viewing audience. We're on all across the state, you know.
Right.
We were picked up by Cablevision and Charter, so you're speaking to the entire Nutmeg State right now.
Good.
But what is chiropractic in a nutshell?
Well, chiropractic is a health delivery system. We like to consider ourselves as part of the natural health care providers. Okay. Our major premise is that, one, the body is self-healing and self-regulating. The body can heal itself. Okay. Two, we know that the nervous system controls everything in the body. All the organs, all the glands, everything in your body is controlled by a nerve. Okay. So if there's anything that puts pressure on a nerve, that would interfere with the body's ability to function properly. Okay. And anything that can take pressure off a nerve would be a good thing. And so what chiropractors deal with is the spine and the nervous system, and what we look for are a thing called a subluxation. Meaning
subluxation.
Right.
Okay.
And that's a term that the founders started, meaning less than a dislocation. But what it really means is that a vertebrae is out of alignment, irritating a nerve.
Okay.
And it's very close to being a fixation, meaning the joints aren't moving right.
Okay.
Okay. So since the nerves control everything in the body, we take a look at the spine.
Now, this is not an actual human spine, right?
Right. This is plastic.
Okay.
It's pretty close.
It's plastic. So the spine is made up of these 27 movable joints, 7 in the cervicals, 12 in the thoracics, 5 in the lumbars. But they're all basically the same in that there's a bone with a disc in between, and these represent the nerves that come out of the spine that go all over your body. Okay? So if a vertebrae gets slightly out of alignment, you can see how it could pinch or irritate the nerve.
Sure.
And that's what we look for. That's what we call a subluxation.
Okay.
And we remove those with our hands or with an instrument to take pressure off the nerve.
Okay.
I many times use a fixation stick to explain it further. I say, look, your spine should move. You should be able to go forward, backward, sideways, and like that.
Right.
And so when a chiropractor palpates, he's just feeling, is there joint play? Does the spine move?
Okay.
And if there's something locked up, that's a pretty good indication that you're subluxated. Okay? And that's where we make the correction. Now, a lot of people have subluxations. It starts off as just minor discomfort in their muscles, and they're walking around like this. So I'm saying part of the spine's moving, part isn't.
I see.
If you keep doing that long enough, that'll cause more irritation, can cause a disc problem. Eventually, it can cause calcium to build up in the disc. You get a spur, or you can start to get degeneration in your spine from lack of movement.
Okay.
So part of chiropractic is not only to get people out of pain, but to correct the problem well enough to keep it from coming back. And so we also then believe in a maintenance program to maintain somebody's health, to keep them healthy.
I'll tell you, I mean, there are people, people I've come to know throughout my life, that swear by what their chiropractor does. I mean, there's guys in the NFL right now, the 1985 Chicago Bears. Some people weren't in favor of, but they had a chiropractor. Guys that had chronic back pain, chronic difficulties. They went to the chiropractor, and they swear by him.
Well, it definitely helps extend the career of athletes, and but really, I mean, what we do in our practice is we do family practice. I mean, I'm into doing sports, and I like to work with young athletes, but what we're doing is working with families in town and trying to maintain wellness and trying to make sure that your spine doesn't start to degenerate and get arthritis. That's really what we're trying to stop, is the buildup of arthritic segments in your spine. So.
Interesting. Now, people that come to a chiropractor, there seems to be quite a litany of different diseases and ailments that it just seems like, if you adjust your back, you can fix acne and premature grayness of the hair. I mean, what are the limits here?
Well,
I mean, what are we talking about?
Again, here's the concept. The nerves that come out of your spine, to break it down, there's 2 different kinds of nerves. There's nerves of pain that you feel. You get a pinch nerve in your neck, it can go down your arm, a pinch nerve in your back, go down your leg. You feel those.
Right.
But that's only 30% of the nerves that come out of your spine. 70% of the nerves or more that come out of your spine are nerves of function, nerves that keep your heart going, go to your stomach, go to your digestive system, your reproductive glands, and everything.
Okay.
So if you have a nerve...
So if you're having a bad sex life,
that's right.
Forget the Cialis and the Viagra. You come get an adjustment, tweak that nerve, and you're good to go.
There's a lot of people that would say the same thing.
Okay.
I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. If you don't have a good nervous system, you can't function.
Can I make an appointment? What is your friend of mine has okay.
But I don't. Sometimes when you say that, it seems like you're going to the point that you can do everything for everybody. Well, we're not saying that.
Okay.
What we're saying is, as natural health care providers, we feel this is the first phase. Do it naturally. Try to do chiropractic, exercise, nutrition. Try to stay healthy. Right. Now, if you need medicine, then you need it. Right. If you need an antibiotic, you need it, and then the last resort would be surgery. But we just try to get people healthy with natural means first. We think that's the best approach.
Interesting. This is going to be your life's work.
This is my life's work so far. I've been doing this for about 4 or 5 years, but I've been working in our family practice. It's me, my mother does the front desk. I've been working there since off and on since high school.
Okay.
So, but yes, I have a long career ahead of me, and just getting started. In about 4 years I've been in.
Now, how many schools are there where you can go to learn this, and what type of a degree do you get, and what's the training behind that?
Okay, well, to get into chiropractic school, just about everybody today has a 4-year degree. Now, you could get into school with the prerequisites, but you'd have to have 2 years of chemistry, including organic chemistry. You got to have math up to calculus.
Okay.
You have to have 2 years of biology.
You have to be a pre-med.
You know, that kind of thing. And then the chiropractic curriculum, I say it's 10 semesters. You know, you can break it down however you want.
Right.
But if you do it straight through like we did, then you can do it in 3 years and 1 semester. You know, if you take summers off, it could take you 5 years.
Right.
The first half is all clinical, or basic sciences, like most doctors, you know, anatomy, physiology, all that stuff,
Right.
diagnosing. Then you get into more specifics of X-ray and bone pathology and all that
just
stuff.
like medical school, I mean, gross anatomy, X-ray. We just don't do pharmaceuticals. So
since we don't treat people with drugs or do surgery, then we go into natural methods. And we
Right.
take a lot of courses in nutrition, a lot of courses in physical therapy using electrical stim, ultrasound, traction, diathermy, you know, stretching, and you know, showing people how to stay healthy.
Right.
And then the chiropractic part.
But it used to be a trade. I mean, it used to be like almost a short amount. Back, 50, 80 years ago, 100 years ago when it started, it was shorter, and it was much more focused on just the adjustment. Now it's more about being a primary care physician, being able to direct people where they need to go, and having that training to diagnose and send people who you can't help to in the right direction.
Okay, so if someone comes in and they have a medical issue, and you can diagnose whether an adjustment is going to solve their problem or whether they really need to. I mean, let's say someone has what appears to be an ulcer. They say, "Doctor, I'm under a lot of stress. You know, when I eat spicy food, my stomach really hurts here." You might say, well, it might be an adjustment, one of the nerves that goes to the stomach, let's try that. But if that's not working, you can refer them to internal medicine and so forth?
I mean, I think that's why our curriculum is so extensive, because even though we don't treat everything, as a primary health care provider, we're supposed to be able to at least diagnose and send them in the right place.
Right.
For instance, I've had patients come to me with back problems and found, through diagnosing and everything, I found it was a kidney problem, so then a kidney stone or something, which can cause a back problem,
right.
Or a gallbladder or, something else. So there's things, obviously we send people to the medical doctors.
What percentage of patients that come to you, although I would imagine if it's anything like patients that I know of that go to chiropractors, they absolutely swear by you guys.
Right.
And if they don't get their adjustment, they feel wrong. And I've got this migraine, I've got to go to my chiropractor to get my adjustment, because if I don't, I'm going to have this headache or whatever it is. What percentage of the patients that come through your door do you say, well, your problem can be solved by the medicine of chiropractic and doing these adjustments? And what would you say, listen, I understand you're having this problem, but it really adjustment's going to knock it out?
I think the way I look at it is Ridgefield, and it is a pretty sophisticated community. Most people are pretty intelligent, so they usually know if they're going to the right doctor or not.
Sure.
So the high percentage of people who come to us are coming to us with what we call musculoskeletal complaints. Neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain, knee pain, that kind of thing.
Sure.
Things that we feel comfortable that we can treat.
Yeah.
But occasionally we find people that, through our examination, that need other things as well.
Right. Now, not to, make it do it, but I play hockey with your son.
Right.
He usually plays on the right side on the dark team. I usually play left defense on the white team.
Yeah.
So often, did he eat a lot of groceries growing up as a child? Go through a lot of cereal and everything?
I had a lot of vitamins. I had a good nutritional, that's part of the care is nutrition. So I had all my vitamins.
Well, if you put Junior over here on skates and run him into a board and you try to stop him or push him into the board or something, you begin to hurt a bit.
Right.
So if you have a hurt shoulder from hitting your son, just hypothetically, I've actually had that.
Right.
But I've gone to an orthopedist or a physical therapist, and they've diagnosed it, and yet I've had knee surgery on both knees. And they'll go in and do an MRI, and they'll say, okay, you have a torn meniscus, or you have a ruptured ACL, and you need to go in and go under the knife. Now, my guess is, and Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, but it would seem like from the chiropractor point of view, you would shy away from first medication, pharmaceuticals, and definitely shy away from going under the knife.
It's all about getting at the injury early. If you can get at a soft tissue injury early enough, you can prevent surgery. I mean, just getting maintenance when, after a game or during an off week and getting care and, going into what soft tissue work is would take a long time to explain it. It's not just massage. It's not just stretching. I mean, there's techniques that we use to free muscles and free adhesions and get rid of scar tissue, and there's even instruments that we use. But yeah, we can prevent surgery, but it's all about getting at it early enough. But sometimes you need that surgery.
And that's all under the banner of chiropractic.
I learned most of the soft tissue work in the locker rooms, and it just started catching on, and now it's taught in the schools more. But when I was going to school, it was just starting to get big, and I had a lot of extracurricular things. I had to go to different workshops, and I had to meet with different people, and I had to seek that out. But now it's more mainstream. You hear a lot of active release technique that's actually more taught as part of the curriculum. But I had to go actively seek that, and that's why I'm able to still, play hockey with you guys, is because not only the adjustments, but also that you need a little maintenance.
Yeah, and that in the long run, rather than handing someone some, Motrin, anti-inflammatory, and heaven forbid, just countless pain medicine. But if you can do these adjustments and have your body heal itself naturally, you're better off in the long run.
Right, exactly, because every drug has side effects or counterindications. In fact, one of the leading causes of kidney failure is overuse of those drugs and acids and things. So that's why it's so important, I think, for people to try to treat these things with a natural approach. And as Nick was saying, is that he's very good with the rehab part. In other words, once you hurt your shoulder, we do the adjustments, we do electrical stim, we get rid of the pain. You know. But then he's good at showing you what the proper exercises are to keep your shoulder strong and balanced.
Right.
And try to keep it from being hurt again.
Well, that's what I mean, maybe I should have gone to you guys, but that's what I got literally with the shoulder was just no, because they x-rayed it.
Right.
And they said, no, you don't need any surgery, but you need to do these kind of
keep
things.
It strong.
And just the different kinds of with weights and things like that. And
stay out of the corners and the boards. And
stay out of the corners.
And the physical therapy is great, and we do a lot of stuff. I do is exactly what a physical therapist would do.
Yeah.
But I think the missing component is extremity adjusting. Adjust shoulders, hands, feet.
Show me some of the things.
This is a
and by the way, what is your website? I don't know if we can get the website up if I give it to you.
It's just Peterson Chiropractic and Wellness.com.
Peterson Chiropractic and Wellness.com.
Right.
Okay. I don't know if I can put that up. Peterson.
So we have different. I mean, most of the stuff I do is by hand, but sometimes, say, you probably got a big old foot, and it would be hard to adjust.
Okay.
You got a lot of bone and very strong. So you use some tools.
Right.
This is a tool that you use. This would be more for a child or a smaller person.
Let me see that. So
that's an activator gun.
Instead of using our hands, it's a soft.
You put that in the spine.
Right. And
spine or anywhere where you're trying to apply force, elbow, hand, carpal tunnel. But basically, with someone like you, I would need to get your hand onto a board like this and use a little more leverage. See how much force that?
There's quite a bit of force there. But this is another technique that we use for extremity adjusting, like for wrists.
Okay.
And
so
you're right, like that. So we check to see if there's anything wrong with your wrist and carpal tunnel particularly. And then instead of doing it that way, we just
Now that's a general mobilization. That's not a true, real adjustment.
Right.
A spinal adjustment is much more intricate and specific. But when you're trying to release a hand or a foot, you're just trying to create motion.
Okay.
Just like
motion. So that's just a mobilization as opposed to a real specific adjustment. Like I have to put this in a specific angle at a specific vertebrae, and that's a true adjustment to your spine. That's just a general mobilization, but it works.
Yeah.
A lot of times we get people with carpal tunnel. I mean, that's a good example.
Yeah. What do you do for carpal tunnel syndrome?
Well, we do.
Give me the website one more time.
Do a variety of things.
Peterson Chiropractic and Wellness.
As you know, carpal tunnel is an impingement of the nerve in your wrist.
Right.
And there's also a thing called a double crush, where a person can have irritation or compression on the nerve here, and compression on the nerve in the neck. So sometimes even though they get surgery, they still get it. So we release the tension on the neck and then also try to release the tension on the
people who have
carpal tunnel.
hand problems inevitably end up having shoulder, neck problems on the same side.
Okay.
So we all come to try to get back to the spine as well.
Try to loosen it up, try to loosen up the muscles in here, try to give them stretching. We found that acupuncture, I don't want to get into that, but that's a good technique
Okay,
too.
but with carpal tunnel, I have seen where people actually go in and have the surgery
absolutely.
done.
Sure.
Are you in favor of that, or
Well, again,
should they have gone to you first? And they wouldn't have
They should have tried us first, just like back surgery. We just feel like you should try the conservative approach first.
Right.
And if it doesn't work, then get the surgery. The surgery should be the last resort, not the first.
Right. Okay.
You know.
I mean, to me, that makes perfect sense.
Right.
But at the same time, you're not going so far to say that there's no role for the surgeon.
Oh no! Of course
like
not. I mean, I think it's wonderful the surgeries they have today.
I mean, I had shoulder surgery myself.
Right.
I did everything under the sun. I was a baseball player in the spring, and then I'd play hockey, in the winter. So I went through a lot of different injuries, and so I was able to maintain my shoulder and play college sports. But when I turned 30, I needed to have the surgery. I mean, there was too much damage to be corrected.
You had a torn labrum, a torn rotator cuff.
Wow. Yeah.
It's got to be
Okay,
replaced.
what is this now?
Those are acupuncture needles that are so small that you can't even, no one's going to be able to see them, but they're 0.2 millimeters in thickness.
So you use acupuncture as well?
That's another adjunct, just like
He is an
electrical
acupuncturist.
stem, all these. I mean, that's why we try to say that, the adjustment is what differentiates us as unique. But in reality, we're really natural health care providers that we use a variety of methods and means to keep people healthy and get them out of pain.
Two questions. One, and this is totally, pop medicine, which is probably a dangerous thing to do. But Don Imus, he's
the comedian,
radio guy. He has like cancer right now, and he is just treating it holistically, not going chemo, not going this, not going that. Would you? I guess you can't diagnose, on television, but would you advocate that kind of thing? I'm a little nervous about it.
I think, that I think is really an individual a choice. I think that
yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one because there are probably some forms of cancer that could be, if you really got rid of sugar in your diet and you did everything right and you went to a professional, not on your own. I mean, you went to a real clinic that pH balances you and you had professional supervision. But just trying to change your diet on your own, thinking that
I would never advocate that myself. Right?
Okay. And then the other one was 1985 Chicago Bears. Jim McMahon was the quarterback. And he had contusions on his, shall we say, upper back thigh, and they used acupuncture. And he had this special doctor, and the medical staff of the Bears didn't want to advocate it at all, so they would sneak this guy in there. And he would, the night before the Super Bowl, he was getting acupuncture treatments. That actually works.
There's a reason why Life University is the national champions in rugby every year. These guys destroy themselves, but they know how to put themselves back together. And acupuncture is one thing that I found is it's like working smarter than harder. I used to go in there and do all this stuff, and it's painful. And the acupuncture is like almost just as good or better in some cases, and it's pretty. That's amazing. But that's his field. He does the acupuncture.
Okay. Well, listen, this has been very interesting. I really appreciate you coming in. If people want to get in touch with you, I guess if they just Google Peterson Acupuncture in Richfield, Connecticut. They can definitely get in touch with
Peterson Chiropractic and Wellness.
Peterson Chiropractic and Wellness.
Okay.
Richfield.
I love Google. You just put it in there.
Right. It'll show up.
Right on Bailey Avenue there.
It'll just come up. But I really appreciate you giving us a little insight into all that this is. And I know it's benefited millions and millions and millions of people. And it's really been, pretty good.
Well, thanks for letting us come by.
I'm just getting a note handed to me. Just as I thought, Obamacare has been repealed. It's official. Right here. Okay, we are going to talk a little bit about Senator Lieberman's retirement and Chris Murphy, who is also possibly making an announcement. Any chance he could do that announcement right here on the Marty Heiser program, Al? Any chance? We'll have to see that. But we're going to break and go to, I think, some video footage with Congressman Murphy and his comments on Senator Lieberman's retirement. So if we have this lined up, we will go to the videotape. Like I said, if we had this lined up, we'll go.
I will complete my 4th term in the United States Senate. And as you know, I've been thinking a lot and talking with family and friends about whether I should seek a 5th term. Now I'd like to tell you, though it probably won't be a surprise, what I've decided and then why. I have decided that it's time to turn the page to a new chapter. And so I will not be a candidate for re-election to a 5th term in the United States Senate in 2012. That was not an easy decision for me to make because I've loved serving in the Senate. And I feel good about what I've accomplished. But I know that it is the right decision. And I must say, having made it, I'm excited about beginning a new chapter of life with new opportunities. I know that some people have said that if I ran for re-election, it would be a difficult campaign for me. So what else is new? It probably would be a difficult campaign for me, but I've run many difficult campaigns before. From my first one in 1970 against the incumbent Democratic State Senate Majority Leader, to my 1988 campaign against the incumbent Republican U.S. Senator, to my campaign for re-election in 2006 to the Senate at the height of the controversy over the Iraq War. In all 3 of those elections, most observers and pollsters thought I would not win. But with an awful lot of help from a lot of independents, Democrats, and Republicans, including many of you here today, in each case, I did win. I have never shied from a good fight, and I never will. The reason I've decided not to run for re-election in 2012 is best expressed in the wise words from Ecclesiastes. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. At the end of this term, I will have served 24 years in the U.S. Senate and 40 years in elective office. By my count, I've run at least 15 full-fledged campaigns, and that's just in Connecticut, not counting the national campaigns I was involved in. So, for me, it is time for another season and another purpose under heaven. I do not intend today to be the end of my career in public service. Having made this decision not to run enables me to spend the next 2 years in the Senate devoting the full measure of my energy and attention to getting things done for Connecticut and our country. I will keep doing everything in my power to build strong bridges across party lines, to keep our country safe, to win the wars we are in, and to make sure America's leadership on the world stage is principled and strong. I'll keep doing everything I can to get our economy moving forward and put our national debt under control, to combat climate change and end our dependence on foreign oil, and to reform our immigration laws. And when my Senate chapter draws to a close in 2013, I look forward to new opportunities that will allow me to continue to serve our country and to stay engaged and involved in the causes that I've spent my career working on and that I care so much about. I go forward with a tremendous sense of gratitude for the opportunities that I've been blessed with to make a difference. As it says in Psalm 13, I will sing to the Lord, for he has treated me so kindly. And this morning I want to sing also to everyone, including every one of you in this room, who has supported and sustained me over the years, beginning with my family, my parents of blessed memory, Henry and Marcia Lieberman, my wife Adasa, who's been such a steadfast soulmate and life partner, our children, grandchildren, siblings, and extended family, all the people who volunteered in my campaigns and all the voters, first in New Haven and West Haven, and then throughout the state, who elected me to 5 terms in the state Senate, 2 terms as Attorney General, and 4 terms as a United States Senator. All the able and honorable public servants I've worked with, I want to thank. And the gifted and devoted people who have served with me as staff and who are exemplified here today by 2 people. My Chief of Staff and valued counselor, Clarissa Nardi-Riddle, who began work with me in 1978. And Sherry Brown, my state director and undefeated campaign manager, who started work with me in 1980. I want to make clear that both Clarissa and Sherry were hardly of voting age when they began. This is a day when it's natural that I step back and try to take a broader perspective on what's happening here and all the blessings that I've had. And I came back to one of my favorite metaphors for the American spirit, which comes from the great American novel written right here in Connecticut by Mark Twain, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. In that book, Huck and Jim ride the raft along the big river that has always, to me, represented American history. In one sense, most obviously by the way they looked, Huck and Jim could not be more different. But in another deeper sense, Huck and Jim were both Americans, unified by a common humanity and sharing a common national destiny as they traveled down the river. So every time Huck and Jim come to a bend in the river, though they do not know and cannot see what lies on the other side of the bend, they are never fearful or pessimistic. They are always excited, confident, and optimistic. That, to me, is the spirit that has always inspired Americans and propelled us forward together. It is the spirit I saw as a young man in the early 60s in the Civil Rights Movement in Mississippi, where white and black heroes refused to accept the injustice of racial segregation. It is the spirit that I've seen in our men and women in uniform, heroes who are serving in Afghanistan and Iraq today for a cause greater than themselves, protecting and advancing freedom. And it is most powerfully the spirit I've seen in the wounded heroes I visited, Walter Reed, who amazingly want nothing more than to go back to the battlefield to rejoin their brothers and sisters in arms. It's the spirit that every day inspires all our American heroes, our first responders and educators, our entrepreneurs and innovators, our citizen activists and religious leaders. And it's the spirit that inspires hundreds of millions of seemingly ordinary Americans, the unsung heroes who work hard and play by the rules every day, driven by a dream, inspired to imagine a tomorrow that is better than today for themselves, most importantly for their children, for our country and our world. That is the spirit that has defined the American people for 235 years now, and that I know will continue to make us the greatest nation in the world. And that is, my friends, the spirit that fills me today. Thank you very much. God bless you. And God bless the United States.
This is a wonderful crowd, and this is really intended as a celebration more than anything else. So I want to make some brief remarks at the outset, and then I want to take some time just to say hello to so many great family and friends who are gathered here today on relatively short notice. So we appreciate you coming down. First, say hello to the best waiver in the business, Owen Murphy. Owen and Kathy, thank you so much for being here. And I'm also just so proud to have with me here my parents, Scott and Kathy Murphy, and Kathy's parents, Charlotte and Ed Hollihan. So thank you so much for being here. Let me just recognize a few elected officials who joined us again on relatively short notice with busy schedules. Our new Attorney General in the state of Connecticut, my great friend George Jepson. Thank you. Again, friends from the 5th Congressional District, State Representatives Cook, Liddy, and Jay Tabersack, thank you so much for all being here today. And as well to Cheshire's favorite daughter, our former state representative and someone who's a great friend of mine, Elizabeth Esty. Thank you, Elizabeth. Earlier today, I announced my candidacy for the United States Senate.
Yeah!
It was not an easy decision for our family. Our heart is here in the 5th District. We're raising our son here, and my priority remains over the next 2 years representing the people of the 5th Congressional District. The question for me was, where could my voice be the strongest for the things that I care about? Where could I advocate the loudest for universal health care for all Americans? Where could I be the strongest voice possible to make sure that we grow real jobs here in Connecticut, that we protect and restore our great manufacturing base? Where could I be the strongest advocate that I could be to end these 2 wars and bring our troops home? And in the end, the decision was that my voice could be strongest for those issues, for the issues that I care about, that my family cares about, and the people that the state of Connecticut cares about in the United States Senate. Now, over the course of the last several months, I've had the chance to talk to a lot of people in my district and across the state of Connecticut about their concerns, their fears, and their hopes for what comes from Washington, D.C. in the next several years. And what you hear over and over again is a frustration with the pace and obstacles presented to change in the United States Senate. The United States Senate has become, over time, a barrier to positive change. And though I go there, though I seek a candidacy for the United States Senate in order to work on the issues that are dear to me and to the people that I represent, we need to change the way that the Senate works. We need to make sure that the Senate recognizes what the rest of the country recognizes, that the status quo for this nation can no longer be tolerated. That in order for us to thrive as a nation in a globally competitive world, that we have to make change, whether it's change to our healthcare system, whether it's change to our energy policy, whether it's change to our foreign policy. We need to have a Washington, D.C., we need to have a Senate that is as committed to change as this country is. So I'm excited about what the next year and a half will bring. Would I have liked to have made this decision 6 months from now or a year from now? Absolutely. But the scope and the cost of modern Senate campaigns require that you get into the race early. And so I look forward to the next 2 years to going out around the state of Connecticut and having a community conversation throughout the state about what we want from government. We started today by sending out a internet video to our tens of thousands of supporters that really summed up what all of my campaigns, all of our campaigns have been about, knocking on doors. I'm going to run this campaign just like I have everyone going back to my first race for state representative in 1998. I'm going to knock on doors and have that ongoing conversation on people's front porches about what they want from government. And the day ends appropriately with some of my closest friends and family, because we are going to grow this campaign on a grassroots basis, one person at a time. As much as the campaign will have all of the modern trappings of money and advertising and organization, it will really be about all of you as we grow a network of thousands of supporters around the state. This is a wonderful day, a wonderful way to end the first day of my Senate candidacy. I'm just absolutely thrilled to be doing it next to my wonderful wife and beautiful son, and at the risk of Kathy's arms falling off. At this point, I'm going to thank all of you for coming and tell you how excited I am to join you in this battle over the next 2 years.
I'll tell you what, that Connecticut state politics, there's just no rest whatsoever. Here now, we just went through an election where, Republicans kind of got hammered, except for my next guest, State Representative Dan Carter, who's here. And Dan, just let me get it out on the table first. Are you running for the United States Senate?
No.
Dan Carter, the 5th Congressional District may be open. Have you considered, because the groundswell of support for you to run in the 5th is building. Will you run in the 5th Congressional District next time?
Not in 2012.
Not in 2012. That's a qualified no. William Tecumseh Sherman was a famous Civil War general, and he gave the emphatic no. He said, if nominated, I will not run. If elected, I will not serve. But you're not quite giving us William Tecumseh Sherman, but it sounds like you're pretty happy with what you're doing.
Well, I'm actually hoping that maybe you step forward and take a crack at it.
Yes, I did win the Republican caucus in
Ridgefield.
I
don't know if you've probably talked about this.
I did. I'm actually, yes.
I'm very proud of that.
I've wallpapered a powder room in my house with that. It's very exciting. Okay, you just got elected to the State Assembly.
That's right.
That gorgeous building up there in Hartford that we all drive by.
Yeah.
You're on the job 2 weeks now. What was it like?
Oh, which part?
Well,
getting
walking in there the first. You get a little lapel pin here.
Yeah, I got
do you have
a little
Secret Service that follows you around?
No, I wish we did. I actually talked to the folks at the Capitol about that, and we're pretty much on our own.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
unless we're threatened, so please, no threats.
Okay. So, what's it like? Just human interest-wise.
Human interest. It was an incredible experience. I mean, obviously, the day after the election, you're excited about it, but it sinks in very quickly. It's like, oh my gosh, what do I do now?
Yeah.
I've learned how to campaign. Now I learned to take the next step.
The classic dog that finally caught the car that has been barking after. Now what do I do?
And it's an amazing experience stepping into that world. And there are some opportunities to go there in the beginning and have some orientation. They have a great nonpartisan staff up there, which do a lot of things for you. Obviously, they don't lead you by the hand. I mean, you have to make the decisions, but they're great resources. And the very first day that you're actually in session is the opening session. You go up and there's a breakfast, and you start the opening session about 10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
I was fortunate. I had my kids with me, which was great.
Sure.
They were, of course,
how old are your kids?
They're 12 and 14. Actually, my daughter will be 15 next Tuesday. So happy birthday early, Whitney.
So how cool is Dad that he's elected and he's up there in the Capitol? They must think their dad is, the president.
Well, I think in the beginning, when we went up, they actually helped me find my parking spot.
Okay.
And we got to go into the office and find the office together.
Wow.
And that was actually a lot of fun. And then to go in and actually, swear in and watch them, or have them watch me do it, was really great. And they told me for the first hour, they were really into it. But the second hour, they were bored out of their minds.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, there was housekeeping legislation and stuff like that. But but it was really a remarkable experience to be in that room. And I remember, as we're swearing in, it was just kind of overwhelming to think, wow, I did it. I'm here. I have a seat at the table.
Yeah.
I have an opportunity to actually serve and do something that's bigger than me.
Sure.
And I think the part where it really sunk in the most was in that afternoon, there was a joint session where the Senate came in and the Connecticut Supreme Court and the governor gave an address.
Wow.
And at that moment, looking around the room and who was there, and a lot of town officials were there, it was really remarkable. And that was a moment for me that kind of solidified it. It was like, all right, I'm off now. This has started.
Yeah.
A lot of work to do.
Yeah.
A lot of late nights. I found that mornings begin very early.
Right.
I think before we were speaking, this morning started out I took the kids to my daughter's school about 7:15,
Right.
son at 8 o'clock. Did my day job until about 12:30. Went up to the Capitol, had a meeting at 2, a meeting at 3, and then I got lunch at 4.
Right.
And then I was there till about 7:45, going through a lot of different bills. And one thing I don't think people understand is how quickly it moves in the beginning.
Right.
You literally have 2 weeks in the first session where you can put in legislation. And the way it works is any legislature in the long year, which is the odd year,
Right.
can bring in legislation. The second year of the term, only bills come from committee.
Okay.
And I don't think the average person knows that.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that because
Well, some of them refer to it as making sausage.
it feels like that.
No one
Yeah.
knows how exactly it gets put together, but you're in the middle of
does.
the sausage factory.
It does, and there are a lot of things that we put in, and what happens is they go through committees and they get ground all together like sausage, and they'll come out in one big bill, hopefully at the end, that was totally unrecognizable from where you started.
Right.
And actually, one of the most interesting things was an experience I had. We were talking about Tony Boucher.
Yeah.
Tony Boucher, and this will be a moment I'll always remember, but she approached me in the house shortly before swearing in, and she gave me a little rubber rat.
Okay.
And she says, keep this in your desk, and remember to find the rat in every bill.
Wow.
Because obviously there are little rats in almost every bill where people have attached things to it.
Okay.
And if you want to do a good job, you need to spend the time to ferret those things out.
Okay.
And get rid of the rat.
Now, do you have sort of a line item that you can go in and find
it's
the little bit of pork barrel spending in every bill? And
where
do something like
where that happens is really in committee.
Okay.
Obviously, as a freshman in the minority, there could be some things that are just out of my control.
Right.
But what I have found is that already I've been able to, seek out the advice of people on both sides of the aisle.
Right.
And partner with them on different bills. And, in the beginning, you put things forward that you think are important, and you've worked with your town.
Right.
I've, worked with Natalie Ketchum. I've worked with Mayor Boughton. I've worked with Matt Knickerbocker on different things that are important in each town. So I can go and I can say, hey, these make sense.
Right.
To get rid of small mandates that actually cost the town big dollars.
Right.
Now, at the same time, the next phase is not only getting my bills through by seeking out ranking members and committees and trying to, advocate for those,
Sure.
but going through all these host of other bills that everybody has put in on
Sure.
both sides of the aisle and finding the ones that make sense. And that's what I'm doing today.
Right.
This afternoon, I'm probably about 2/3 of the way through, and I've got a list of probably 100 bills that I want to go back and find out more information about.
What do they do for my constituents?
What do they do for my
What can I get
constituents?
behind? What can I?
Exactly.
Okay.
And then I have the opportunity early on here to co-sponsor these bills.
Okay.
And find ways to advocate.
Excellent.
And that's what happens, and a lot of that happens through committee.
Okay.
So
the phone number here is 438-2003, 438-2003. If you want to, we were talking about that this is your first appearance after the
Right.
election. So here he is. He looks fit and ready, and looks like he's doing a good job, but feel free to call in. But caller, you're on the air. Did you have a question for your state rep?
Well, absolutely. Hey, this is Al here. Too bad I can't be with you guys.
This is Al Robinson,
Hey, Al.
founder and keeper of the Hat City blog, which you might want to check out. Are you on that? Are there any video clips of you?
I think I have been, and actually we were speaking a while back, and he's going to try to get me on for an interview.
There you go.
So.
All right. Al, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, hey, look, Dan, if you're not on my site, it makes you famous any time. Right? Want some publicity. Well, look, here's the thing. We talked before, and I think we talked during the 3-year campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one thing to campaign, as you know now. It's one thing to campaign, but when you get in there, you're sitting there, and you're actually doing the job. It's a completely different matter. You got some massive things that are coming up right now that are going to affect city budgets. And my big pet peeve, which I think everybody should be very alarmed or concerned about, is ECS funding. And that goes into the education.
Just that stands for Educational Cost Sharing, right?
Right.
It's the cost sharing. Basically, it's just the state funding for municipalities in terms of education. I went to several Board of Ed meetings, and I talked to chairpersons of several boards of ed, and they said, look, even if we get flat funded for ECS, it's going to hurt us significantly. And the governor has talked about although he said on the campaign trail that he's going to fully fund ECS and fully fund the towns and cities, now that he's governor, he's saying, well, I'll try to do the best I can. What are your concerns about ECS, and are you concerned that cities such as, or towns such as Bethel or cities such as Danbury, which you represent, might not get the money that they need for their education?
Excellent question. Thanks a
Very
lot.
good question.
I mean, just to piggyback, I'll let you answer that, but the state is broke. We don't have a lot of money. They spend a lot of money on education through this ECS, educational cost sharing, where something's got to give.
Well,
what do you do?
I would, and I'm going to say this in jest, in a sense, but I'll try to quantify what I'm saying. I don't think the state's broke.
Good news.
We have the money.
Right.
Right? The question, we have a budget deficit coming up because we're planning to spend all this money and more. We have a lot of money coming in when you think about it.
Sure.
It's just now we're planning to overspend and we're not spending wisely.
Okay.
So the key is, that's why I've always said it's been a spending issue, not so much as a revenue issue.
Right.
Follow me?
Yeah.
So I think that's where we need to look first. Now, to get to Al's question specifically, I'm very concerned about ECS funding, as everybody is, because we have such a huge budget,
right,
and we have a lot of things that we're committing money for that, obviously, it appears that we're broke.
Yeah.
Because I think the best we can hope for is flat funding. The best we can hope for.
Now, when you say flat funding, that's year over year, exact same dollar amount?
Right. I don't see anything changing. And what Al points out is significant because the costs go up. So obviously that's going to put the towns in a bind.
Right.
And for somebody like me, that's where I feel I can really make a difference because I can go out and try to find these smaller ways to cut money.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's some big things we can try to do. Constitutional spending cap. I actually introduced legislation to do just that.
Right.
Some of these smaller mandates, when allowing the towns to get the budget sooner in the year.
Right.
I introduced a bill to do that. But obviously, ECS funding at best is going to be flat, and it's going to put everybody in a bind.
Let me throw this out here, and you tell me where I'm wrong. But individuals don't have as much money coming in, and they've had to curtail their lifestyle. My wife and I were talking about this tonight. We don't go out to eat as much. You make that pair of shoes. You know who's doing very good business? Shoe repair shops. Because people are repairing what they got rather than buying new ones. So individuals are tightening their belts. Families are having to tighten their belt. Do more with less. I've got one child left in college, and we're doing everything we can to make sure we're going to have enough money so she can stay in college. But it's not easy. Vacations, forget about it. Some of the other things we want to do, forget about it. Now this is going to, some of you may want to cry right now when you hear this story. I had a friend who had tickets to the Bears-Packers game this weekend. All I had to do was come up with a flight out to Chicago, but I said I couldn't afford it. Now, I know that's hardship beyond anyone's wildest dreams. But the point is, individuals, families, companies, their revenues are going down and they're making adjustments. Why is it so wrong to ask the state government and local governments to look around and see where maybe some things have gotten bloated over the last 3 or 4 decades of pretty good economic times, and make adjustments? And why is that viewed as somehow mean-spirited? You're a school district.
Right.
Our school district has $77 million. They're teaching the exact same number of kids that they did 5 years ago, and the budget was like $63 million. There's a 42 head count increase, same amount of kids, more increase. So what is so wrong with asking these various entities, school boards, towns, to try and figure out how to do more with less like everyone else does?
Well, I think you bring up a great point. Everybody has seen, well, I shouldn't say everybody, a lot of people have seen their incomes go down, myself included. I think what's important to realize is everybody is going to have to contribute. I mean, that's the message coming from the governor. Now, the question is, those become very difficult decisions because who are those people? I go to a committee meeting now, and I sit in a committee room, and we're the beginning of the committees. So it's gavel in, gavel out almost. You're just pushing a few things through. It's a very short meeting. Yet the room is packed with people. Why? Because there are a lot of people who have interests in state government
Yeah.
You have a lot of nonprofits out there who do really great things.
Right.
You might have 400 nonprofits doing wonderful things for people,
Right.
but guess what? There may be a lot of overlap. So there's a lot of money that's going out.
Right.
And I think the bottom line is going to be that we're going to have to find ways to consolidate. The governor has totally talked about doing that, finding ways to consolidate the waste, and making everybody kind of, I would say, suffer equally. But I think that's the general gist. Now, obviously, the people who are out there paying the tax dollar right now have been suffering the longest, I would say.
Yeah.
And politically speaking, it's going to be very, very difficult because those dollars have to be taken from somewhere.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about these nonprofit groups out there who are doing great things, well, where do you scale back? And I think that's what keeps us in this rut. That's why the decisions are so difficult.
Yeah.
Because what group do you say, well, we can't support that as much? And it could be something that's very good.
Right now, the state of California pays with IOUs.
Yeah.
Because they're out of money. Right now in Illinois, they just raised their state income tax 66%, if you can believe it. They right now there are gas stations that won't sell gas to state troopers in the state of Illinois. True story. I think it was on 60 Minutes.
Yeah.
It's on 60 Minutes. It must be true. There is a point where government has overspent and overspent year over year, and the party is over.
Well, we're at a point right now, obviously, where the governor has difficult decisions to make. The legislature is going to have difficult decisions. They don't have a Republican governor now that they can blame things on. I think everybody's going to have to step forward and try to find ways to work this out. And it's not going to be easy. There's no question about it. And, I think we're in for an interesting ride the next couple of months. It sounds like the governor is really adamant about getting the budget out on time, and I think it's a good thing. So, and I know we're running short on time, so one thing I do want to make sure
I do want you to come back. I know this was last minute. I appreciate you coming in.
But I want to take the break for just a second and say to everybody out there on this side now, thank you. Thank you. The opportunity that I've been given to serve you is incredible. Glad to be here. Make sure you reach out and contact me with your issues.
Dan Carter, you're easy to get a hold of.
I'm around.
And no, I really appreciate you coming in and consider yourself at home here. This can be your mouthpiece, and we really appreciate you serving.
Hey, I'll take a text message. Somebody come, I'll be here.
Yeah. That was funny. I texted you today, so it's great. So I really appreciate your work very much, and we'll have you back.
You too. And congratulations. Heiser takes GOP caucus.
Woohoo! All right, well, listen, join us again next week when we're going to be talking about Lyme disease. Are they on next week?
2 weeks.
In 2 weeks from now, we are going to solve the Lyme disease problem. It has something to do with a 30-06 and a nice scope because we're going to take out some deer. But Dave Straight is going to come out, and he's going to explain all that, so it'll make it all work out. But thanks again for joining us on the Marty Heiser Show, and we'll see you again next week at the same time. Tune in. What else are you going to do?